Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video, and of course, continuing on, reviewing Halloweenish films. Yes, you read the title of what the next Halloweenish film I'm reviewing, and as I teased in the last review video, yeah, and I think I pretty much gave it away because one who haunts and sometimes kills you in your nightmares, and one who resides at a crystal lake. And yep, and hence I'm wearing the shirt. And, this film, it too, celebrating its anniversary. That's right, guys. I am reviewing Freddy versus Jason. Yes, Freddy versus Jason. I also have my copy, and you saw the thumbnail, so yeah, you know. So, Freddy versus Jason. I gotta say, finally watching this for the first time, and as I record this, I finished watching the movie fully for the first time. I'm not kidding. And I gotta say, this didn't disappoint me. I was not complaining one single bit. I am well aware, how much this movie gets received, like how people feel about it. And I'm pretty sure, no doubt about it, like me, there are those that think that this movie is okay, not that bad. But there are those that are just like, and, no offense, and I understand and respect your opinion on how you feel about Freddy versus Jason. And the fact that, for many years, people have been wanting to see these two iconic horror characters, come face to face and battle each other. And the fact that it was teased in one of the Friday the 13th movies, which that being Jason Goes to Hell. At the end of the movie, it seems like a happy ending, and Jason, he's been defeated, and his ski mask, hockey mask, is on the gravel and so on, like dirt, whatever. And then out of nowhere, Freddy Krueger's hand with his glove pops out and digs it down, pulls it down. And that was the tease. That was the tease that, ooh, this could happen. We may be getting this. And finally, in 2003, it happened. And yeah, because it was heavily mixed, and it's a shame. And I think there were some good things about this movie. I think so, because, yeah, there are some people that have said some good things that came from this movie, especially when it came to Freddy and Jason fighting each other. No doubt about it. All right, but I'll go ahead and read the description / the story, as always. Two horror icons face off in this supernatural movie. Disfigured serial killer Freddy Krueger, once again played by the one and only Robert Englund, who attacks his victims in their dreams, has lost much of his power since citizens of his town, which of course being Elm Street, have become less afraid of him. Enlisting the help of fellow violent murderer Jason Voorhees, this time in this, because here's the thing, Jason Voorhees has been played by a lot of actors, being the body performance of Jason, and the fact that Jason never talked. So Jason in Freddy vs. Jason being played by Ken Kerzinger, I hope I'm saying his last name right. Yeah. Anyways, Freddy orchestrates a new killing spree. However, when the hockey mask-wearing psychopath won't stop chopping up Freddy's intended victims, the two ghouls start to battle each other. So one thing about Freddy vs. Jason that a lot of people have complained about is that there's not that many fights between Freddy versus Jason. Not that much. But, come on guys, you gotta understand, when it came to the Nightmare on Elm Street films and the Friday the 13th films, they had the teenage characters and, it's not just about Freddy and Jason, okay? Again, about the Nightmare on Elm Street films and the Friday the 13th films, it's not just about those two horror icons, because there's gotta be more characters in those movies than just those two. Do you know what I'm talking about? And unless they tried really hard, those who worked on Freddy vs. Jason, if they tried their best, if they tried very hard to make this good, and with the characters, aside from Freddy and Jason, maybe if they had succeeded, it would have been decent. I mean, because you gotta, like, these characters, from the teenage characters, there have been some good ones, like, the first characters that appeared in the first Friday the 13th film and the first Nightmare on Elm Street film. You get what I'm saying, okay? If only they tried their best, okay? Besides, like, what would you have expect in Freddy vs. Jason? Just throughout the whole movie, Freddy and Jason constantly fighting? I think if that had happened, that would have been boring, and, for something else to happen than just them fighting. You get what I'm saying? So again, if they tried their best, they could have tried their best, and sometimes, when it comes to filmmaking, sometimes there's bad luck. So there's that. Freddy Krueger, once again played by Robert Englund. And by the way, Freddy vs. Jason being Robert Englund's last time playing Freddy Krueger, as well as, after this, years later, he would reprise the role of Freddy Krueger in an episode of ABC's The Goldbergs, if you know what I'm talking about. Those would be the last 2 times he would play the one and only Freddy Krueger. And, and especially we also had that Nightmare on Elm Street remake, and with What's-His-Face playing Freddy Krueger. I'm sorry, but there's no way that could top off the original, and no way that nobody can top off Robert Englund and what he brought to the character of Krueger. I'm sorry. He is the one and only Freddy Krueger, so there's that. So we get like a little backstory, and, the character of Freddy Krueger, he used to be, alive, and he was, I think, a doctor? Yeah. And, because of the kids that he killed and he was let go of, he was freed from jail, but the parents took it upon themselves to kill Freddy Krueger. And if you know the story of A Nightmare on Elm Street and the backstory of Freddy Krueger, and Freddy gives a little narration to us audience, that he had been forgotten, and the many times he had, killed his victims while they were dreaming, they would start to remember, but, the many times that he was defeated, he would be forgotten, and this time, he is forgotten, and, he doesn't have that much power in him, and he uses a bit of power that's left in him to resurrect Jason Voorhees, to have Jason, kill fresh new victims for Freddy, so that way, thinking that this was Freddy's doing, and thus he would return and everybody would remember by his name. So, yeah, and thus that's where, Jason steps in. He's resurrected. Freddy pretends to be Jason's mom, tricking Jason into, waking up and killing new victims, going to Elm Street, and, yeah, and thus, that's where we kick off, and, he heads to Elm Street, and we, of course, get the introduction of our main teenage characters. We have Laurie Campbell, played by Monica Keena. Yeah, I got that right. There's Kia Watterson, played by Kelly Rowland. Yeah, Rowland, that's right. And Gibb, played by Catherine Isabel. There's also Charlie Linderman, played by Christopher Marquette. I'm probably I'm mispronouncing his last name. Again, you know me, as I've explained many times. Yeah, and basically, because with some of these teenagers, because, being those type of teenagers, and especially because when at one point Gibb and a boy that she's with, they at one point go upstairs and they have sex, and Jason making his way to the house, and one of his first kills is the boy that Gibb had sex with, and even after they had sex, she took a shower, and of course, once she went into the bathroom, well, that's when Jason stepped in and killed him, and I gotta say, it never fails when it comes to either, Jason or Freddy killing their victims. They're so good, violent, bloody, and gory, So yeah, Jason killing that boy in the bed, like, stabbing him by the back, and then, because of the type of bed that they're on, like, it can, what's the name of that type of bed? You know what I'm talking about, can come up, and you can leave it in the comments section. I swear I can't remember the name of that type of bed, but you know what I'm talking about. Killing him brutally by, activating that bed and so on. And, well, it's, the cops, of course, showing up, and they suspect that it might be you-know-who, but they can't say his name. And if they say his name, he will be unleashed. He will be back if everybody, again, as I said, remembers his name. And by the way, one of the main cops, Sheriff Williams, played by Gary Chalk. I tell you, Gary Chalk, he's a very well-known actor from voice acting and doing a lot of, on-screen acting. He's done a lot of on-screen acting from what I've seen. And also, he's most notably well-known to be one of the voices for Optimus Prime. So, yeah, if any of you knew that. So, yeah, Sheriff Williams, of course, he's trying to keep it all, you don't say that son of a bitch's name, of course, referring to Freddy Krueger. But it's nice for once that, because at this point, and for the people of Elm Street, especially for the police, they are well aware of who Freddy is, and the fact that Freddy can, haunt people's dreams. Because, yeah, as I recall, even in the first Nightmare on Elm Street film, nobody knew it at first until very later on, and as obviously the Nightmare on Elm Street films, proceeded on. And at one point, they're all brought into the police station, and, especially because Laurie mentioned to Kaya that, they were questioning her about her dreams and so on, and she has no idea. In fact, none of them know what the heck is going on, and how, his name must not be mentioned. Even at one point, Laurie starts to dream, and I tell you, creepy things happening, like that file where, flyer, yeah, because with all the missing children, she passes by it, and I knew it was coming, I predicted it, I called it, basically, that they start to turn, the pictures of the missing children start to turn and look at her, and then she comes across a little girl with her eyes bleeding, she has no eyes, and of course she at one point wakes up. I tell you, because, again, at least, there were some pretty good creepy moments and pretty good stuff. I'm talking about that, and I know I'm going to probably talk more about this as I review the film. And by the way, you may have noticed that, yeah, I actually took off, and the jump cut, of course, you noticed the jump cut where I took off the Freddy Krueger glove. Sorry, I'm not going to wear it throughout the rest of this review. I'll probably put it back right before I end off this review video. So, anyways. And also, there is a new cop that comes into Elm Street. I believe, it's Deputy Scott Stubbs, played by Lachlan Monroe. So he's new, and he is, of course, unaware of what's going on. And, even Sheriff Williams, his name almost slipped out of my head. Sheriff Williams, keeping the deputy straight, and, he really can't mention his name to the deputy, and, I'm sure that, he wants the deputy to know all this, but, they really can't. So, afterwards, because, of course, the teenage characters, they go back to their lives, and, even say Laurie, all she has is her dad. We also get the introduction of two other characters, teenage characters, of course, who are in a mental institution. Will Rollins, played by Jason Ritter, the son of the late John Ritter, yes, and if any of you knew that, and as I now mentioned his name before I said, And there's also Mark Davis, played by Brendan Fletcher. Yeah, Brendan Fletcher. I am familiar with Brendan Fletcher. Yeah. Because I've seen him in the Robin Williams movie RV. And if you've seen RV, because he was one of them, trash, dirt, RV drivers, that helped Robin Williams' character take care of the sewage, and again, if you know RV and know that sequence, yeah, he was one of them. So, yeah. So both Will and Mark, they're in a mental institution, and obviously this has to do something with, Freddy Krueger's doing and what led them to be put into a mental institution. And we also find out that at first, it seems like Will was responsible for killing Laurie's mother, because Laurie unfortunately lost her mother. But we do find out from Laurie's dad, Dr. Campbell, played by Tom Butler, that something about Dr. Campbell, we don't know until very later on in the movie, and when I get to mentioning that. And of course, Will and Mark, they are aware of what happened at Elm Street, and, Will concerned about Laurie, and, they used to be BF and GF. I think technically they technically still are at that point, and when he's in the mental institution, but the movie never establishes it, so I guess we're left to guess. It's one of those things. And Will and Mark, they are determined to get out of the mental institution. Even at one point, Mark was trying to get one of like the security guards their attention, like the one at the front desk, like acting crazy, I guess like a monkey or something. And Mark does succeed, and by getting the front desk officer's keys, and thus they get out of there and make their way to Elm Street, and, to the high school, and to warn Laurie. And, at one point, because Laurie, she starts to pass out, and, and sometimes throughout the film, like, some of the characters would dream. It's, and that's the thing, because, like, it's like, how do they just immediately go to sleep like that? Like, does this have to do with what Freddy's doing? Again, the movie never establishes it. Even like, in the Nightmare on Elm Street films, so, because you don't know it until just very later that you realize that the character is dreaming. So, yeah. And thus, yeah, all the other characters like Kaya, starting to see Freddy, each of them starting to dream. And at one point, Will and Mark, they're trying to find evidence on Freddy Krueger, but, there's no information, like, obviously, because as they're looking at it, on a computer, like, it's been, like, crossed off, and, it's been blacked, and so on. Again, because, the people of Elm Street, they don't want to say his name. But they are determined, because Freddy is determined for them to say his name, and so on. And more with Jason, because very later on, at night, because Laurie, Kaya, Gib, and Charlie, they attend this crop field party that's happening. Again, it's not established, like, what exactly. I guess all the kids from high school, doing this party, and even Charlie trying to show his affection to Laurie, but, unfortunately, they don't get together. Even Kaya telling Charlie to, bug off and leave Laurie alone. And even though, because Laurie already has Will, and now that he got out of the mental institution, and I think, she was kind of unaware, and when Will, and as Will told her that, he had been in a mental institution, and this was her dad's doing, why Will, being in a mental institution along with his friend Mark. And at one point, Gib wanders off. She's still, upset over the loss of, the boy that she had sex with, her boyfriend, technically. And at one point, she starts to dream and sees Freddy and ends up like in a, what are they called? Like a barn institution? And, there's like red lighting. And Freddy just taunting and terrorizing her. And Freddy was going to kill Gib, but unfortunately Jason beat Freddy, and that's when Jason overdoes it, overkills the victims that Freddy wanted Jason to kill. Too many victims for Jason to kill. He's not following the orders that Freddy gave, pretending to be Jason's mom. So yeah. And like, Freddy at one point, saying, she was mine! And there was at one point like this idiotic teenage boy followed Gib, and because she was asleep, he was gonna like rape her, but Jason well, because Jason had killed Gibb, also killed the boy that was going to rape Gibb, and by tossing him, basically. And then Jason starts to kill, some of the teenagers that are at the cornfield party, and even at one point, a chubby one, sets Jason on fire, and thus he's on fire, and as he's killing and terrorizing the teenagers, and that was a pretty cool moment right there, and just seeing Jason, in flames. Come on. Is that not cool or what? And after what happened at the cornfield, those who, of course, survived from, Lori, Kaya, and Will, because they survived, and also Charlie, and, of course, a moment between Lori and Kaya, because after they lost their friend Gibb, and at one point, because, when it's just only Will and Lori, Will establishes and verifies Lori how her mother died, and, Lori tells Will that, she died in a car accident, her mother she's talking about, and sure enough, Dr. Campbell steps in, he's a bit pissed off and, tells Will to back off and so on, to leave Lori alone, and Lori, because telling her dad to stop, and at one point just runs into the house, I should say, and, it seems like Dr. Campbell, there's something about Dr. Campbell, and, as I said a little bit earlier, it seems like he's a bit cuckoo and something, and, the thing is, why would he have sent Will and was the reason for Will going into the mental institution when Will did nothing? And it's like you find out, and Lori finds out that her dad might be hiding something. Even at one point, Dr. Campbell, and that's what he's credited, Dr. Campbell. Do we know the dude's name? Just saying. He recommends his daughter to take pills so it can calm her down and she can get sleep. But the thing is, she doesn't want to sleep, obviously, because if she does sleep and she starts dreaming, well, all hell breaks loose and Freddy's stepping in. And thus, she runs away from her dad, even at one point, going through her bedroom window, escaping from her dad, and then again running into Will. And then they go to find and pick up Mark, because I guess, he's in his family's house. And we find out from Mark Davis, again, played by Brendan Fletcher, that he lost his entire family, from his parents and his brother, who committed suicide. Obviously, Freddy's doing. And at one point, Freddy steps in and taunts and terrorizes Mark, and we see Mark's older brother, Bobby, coming out of a bathtub. It's all blood and such in the bathtub, and of course, it's Freddy pretending to be Mark's older brother, again, taunting him and so on. And by the way, Bobby being played by Zach Ward, aka Scott Farkas from A Christmas Story. And because, the mocking and taunting that Freddy is saying to Mark, as Bobby, obviously for a joke, and thanks, Nostalgia Critic, you're making me mentioning this, the mocking dialogue would have been could you imagine, again, it's for laughs, what, are you gonna cry now? You know what I'm talking about, from A Christmas Story, you get the joke. Again, thanks, Nostalgia Critic, for mentioning it. Golly, because with Mark, because on the bathroom floor, because prickly thorns, whatever the heck they are, they go through his feet, and then snakes pop up. And of course, Mark, he's just freaking out, and, wake me up! And at one point, Freddy's still terrorizing and attacking Mark, even when, Lori and, Will, they finally arrive, and they're trying to get inside, and they see what's happening with Mark, and they are, of course, aware that he's being attacked by Freddy, because I think, at this point, everybody starts to remember Freddy's name, and that's when, the more they remember him, the more he gets powerful once again, and, he returns, and thus, him attacking Mark and, just giving him scratches, and And Freddy asked Mark to leave a message to everyone. And we see, and when Mark sadly gets killed, on his back, golly, very gruesome, like, it says on his back, like being burned flesh, I want to say, that, Freddy's back. And yeah, thus, Freddy has returned. But also, Jason, he's still on the loose and still killing a lot of victims. And even though, yeah, because Freddy's plan didn't go so well, like it didn't go according to plan. There you go. All right, and so to speed things up a little, the deputy, because of how much he wants to know about this and to know the name, well, the sheriff is not having any of it. And, the sheriff, tells him, if he does anything and stuff like that, he'll lock him up and so on. And the deputy basically I guess, goes behind the cops' backs, and, he then goes to the teenagers who have started to remember Freddy's name, and there was another character that joined the group of teenagers, Bill Freeberg, played by Kyle Labin. I hope I'm saying his last name right, I don't know. So the Deputy Scott Stubbs joins our group of teenagers, even at one point, obviously, and, as further, Laurie is dreaming, and everybody just, turns at Laurie and starts, attacking her, and then Freddy, of course, popping up, and, of course, yeah, Laurie waking up from a horrible dream, of course, and they also discover, these pills, and also at the mental institution that Mark and, Will were at. It's called, the pills are called Hypnosol. Yeah, I got that name right, I'm pretty sure. And actually, yeah, because I'm reading it, it says, the drug was used in the film to keep the kids from dreaming and therefore keeping Freddy Krueger at bay. So they all head to the mental institution, and there's also a laboratory in there, and, trying to find the pills, and they see the kids that are hooked up to tubes and so on, and they're, keeping them from dreaming and so on. And a moment with Freeberg, because, trying to smoke on a cigarette. And at one point, Freddy starts to, terrorize and, and also possess Freeberg. There's at one point we see Freddy, he's a caterpillar, some kind of, creepy caterpillar, and CGI, of course, and, he starts, smoking, too, with Freeberg, I guess, I assume, this is, I was thinking as I watched that part where, what? The caterpillar from Alice in Wonderland? Because the caterpillar, especially the one from Disney, is smoking. So something like that. And basically, Freddy, again, possessing and, taking control of Freeberg, having him, drain the pills, down the sink and destroying them, get rid of all the pills and all that's left for them to use. And, yeah, unfortunately, some of the characters at the mental institution and in the lab, they don't make it. Especially when Jason once again shows up. Jason at one point kills the deputy. It's unfortunate that the deputy got killed, and Freeberg, still being possessed by Freddy, Freddy, taking control of Freeberg, taking on Jason, and I think, yeah, using that stuff, whatever it was, to, conk out Jason, putting him down to sleep. And even for Jason, sadly, Freeberg doesn't make it because he gets sliced in half, his torso by Jason, so that's unfortunate for Freeberg. And all that, and those who are left are, Laurie, Will, Kaya, and Charlie. They're the only ones left. And at one point, they take Jason's body with them because, with Laurie, if she goes to sleep, then she can enter into Jason's dreams and also find Freddy and bring him into the real world, and that way Jason can kill Freddy. So, yeah. And, of course, one infamous moment we get in the movie, we finally get Freddy versus Jason. Freddy and Jason fighting, and there's, red lighting. They're, at, sewage place, whatever the heck it's called, with pipes and so on. You know what I'm talking about. And if you know what I'm describing, and if you know what it is, let me know in the comments section. So a really cool, like, fighting moment. The first fighting sequence between Freddy and Jason, at one point, right as the fight began, Jason cut off his arms, but of course, Freddy grows them back and, just kind of like leaving scratches on his mask and, fighting like with his glove and Jason's sai. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what's called, Jason's weapon. And even at one point, like, Freddy, like, basically, like, using, like, the force, I want to say, like, moving Jason all around, and there's, like, funny sound effects, like a pinball machine sound, like, yeah, that's what Freddy's doing to Jason, like, having Jason, like, hit the pipes, and it's like a pinball machine. It's funny. I mean, who says that some, horror characters like Freddy can't have funny moments? Like, another good example, Pennywise. Come on, it wouldn't hurt for any villain to have a funny moment. Hey, good example, the Disney villains. So there's that. And then, like, the lighting from red then turns to green, and we then discover that Jason is afraid of water. Now, I don't know on that. I guess technically, like, for Jason, he's mixed on water because, well, when he was 11 years old, and as the movie establishes, and of course, as we all know from the Friday the 13th films, he was only 11 years old when he was at Camp Crystal Lake, and he drowned in the lake. So, yeah, technically that counts. And obviously, like, the many times that he was in water, I guess, like, he forced himself to, swim and stuff like that. You get what I'm saying. And at one point, because, yeah, Freddy is basically killing Jason while he's dreaming, at one point they have to save Jason. They have to keep Jason alive. So again, Laurie can lure Freddy into the real world. And at one point, Kaya was going to give mouth-to-mouth to Jason, but unfortunately, Jason had woken up, so he's all right, and he was about to attack them, but at one point, Will, driving the car, the van basically, it crashes, and, well, and to speed things up a little bit more, they make their way to the original site of Camp Crystal Lake from the first movie, the first Friday the 13th movie. And apparently all this time, throughout the Friday the 13th films and the Nightmare on Elm Street films, and if they're even considered to be canon, together in one universe, like, apparently Camp Crystal Lake was close to Elm Street. Okay, so, like, they weren't that far from each other. So, yeah. So, again, they make their way to the original site of Camp Crystal Lake, and, of course, Laurie, yeah, she did go to sleep, and she sees Jason when he was 11 years old and how he was bullied and picked on, and even Freddy, of course, popping up, and even at one point, yeah, because, again, Freddy was drowning Jason, and hence Kaya was going to give Jason mouth-to-mouth, CPR, so yeah. And of course, yeah, Jason did wake up, and thus he vanished, and Freddy going after Laurie, and at one point, the look of Freddy, because he now, like, kind of, like, resembles the devil, basically. And then, of course, yeah, Laurie does succeed in bringing Freddy into the real world. Even at one point, Freddy said to Laurie, welcome to my world, bitch. And thus, when Freddy enters into the real world, finally, Jason and Freddy go at it. Yeah. And there have been moments in movies where something epic happens, then we cut to something else, like, because at one point when Kaya and Charlie, I think at this point, like, Charlie and Kaya, I guess, were kind of slowly finding each other attractive, I guess, I don't know. Charlie at one point got very wounded by Jason. At one point, Jason threw him, and he got stabbed by something hanging on the walls of, like, an old cabin. Kaya and Charlie get out of there, and so do Laurie and Will. And Charlie tells Kaya to leave him here, he'll be all right, and to go help Will and Laurie. And but dude, you're bleeding. Like, you can't have Kaya go leave you and so on. But yeah, he insists that she go and help them. And yeah, that's the last time we see Charlie. Like, do we even know that he's still alive? do those who survive, at the very end of the movie, do they find and help Charlie? Again, the movie doesn't establish that. So, God, it's one of those things, where they don't establish it ever again. We never see this character. You get my point. And we get more fighting between Freddy and Jason, of course, and really cool because, like, a couple of things I could think of, at one point, and as the fight began between Freddy and Jason, Freddy at one point, hit Jason's crotch with his foot, but apparently it hurt Freddy's foot. Like, I guess his crotch is made of steel or something. I don't know. I mean, I guess you could say it's Jason, and he's unstoppable. Even at one point, or a little bit early on, in their first fight, Freddy at one point, said, why won't you die? And yeah, Jason is unstoppable. Well, you know what? So is Freddy. Like, both of them can't kill each other, especially at the end. And also, there's one moment where Jason, like, drags Freddy, like, at a window and dragging him, and, it's really cool. And the more fighting we get, and, like, Freddy using his powers to launch things at Jason, like, stabbing him and so on. Even at one point, like, Freddy slips and, like, he's hanging upside down like a Christmas ornament that Nostalgia Critic mentioned in his review. And even at one point, Kaya confronts Freddy, and even though she tried her best, well, Freddy kind of gave her a heads up that, Jason was right behind her, and Jason basically, unfortunately, killed Kaya. And Freddy, because, again, Freddy has his funny moments, and because when Kaya got killed and got, tossed by Jason, he's just like, ooh, I guess, like, he was perfectly fine with that Jason killed her for him, so, of course they still fight, and up to when they're at, like, the dock, because at the original site of Camp Crystal Lake, the original location at the docking bay and so on, well, Freddy and Jason, they're still, fighting each other, and at this point, they're severely wounded, and even at one point, because Jason, like trying to break Freddy's arm, and Freddy at one point cut off his fingers, and he grabbed Jason's weapon, and just stabbing him, and, like, they're stabbing each other some more. And even at one point, Will and Laurie, well, they can easily get out of there, but Laurie, she's not going anywhere, because we do find out that Freddy obviously was responsible for her mom's death by possessing supposedly her dad. I'm pretty sure the movie does establish that Freddy, he possessed her dad to kill, Laurie's mother, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah. So, of course, yeah, obviously, Freddy was responsible for Laurie's mother's death, and she will stop at nothing to defeat and get rid/kill Freddy. And of course, technically the same goes for Jason. And at this point, yeah, Jason and Freddy, they're severely wounded. Golly, even at one point, another gruesome moment. Freddy, with his glove, sticking them in Jason's eyes. And even that still doesn't defeat him. But at one point, Laurie and Will, they set the place on fire, and of course, they're engulfed by the flames and a huge explosion. And Will and Laurie, they jump into the lake, and it sends Freddy and Jason flying into the lake as well because of the huge explosion. And yeah, Freddy, not defeated yet, and he has Jason's weapon in his hand about to kill Laurie and Will, but Jason, with Freddy's arm, with his glove, stabbing right through Freddy, and Jason is out, and he's out. Because, yeah, Jason, of course, he collapses and, collapses into the lake. And, of course, Freddy, there's nothing that he can do, and Laurie grabs Jason's weapon, and she repeats to Freddy the same words that he said to her, "Welcome to my world, bitch," and slices/decapitates Freddy's head. And Freddy, of course, is defeated once and for all. And of course, everything's good now, and hey, Will and Laurie, they're finally back together, and a happy ending for them, technically. And again, I'm pretty sure that, and if Charlie survived, because we don't know if he did, maybe he did, and maybe they, they found him, and maybe he got patched up and better. Who knows? And if this was ever established, I don't know. And we get one more scene where, yeah, obviously the next day in the aftermath on what happened, at the original site of, Camp Crystal Lake, well, Jason rises out of the lake and he's holding Freddy's head. So yeah, Jason, he's perfectly all right. And of course, he can't be killed/defeated. And the same goes for Freddy, because Freddy looks at the camera directly at us audience and he winks at the camera and boom, that's how the movie ends. A great way to end the movie right there. Because again, Freddy and Jason, they're unstoppable. And, and as I said, them trying to kill each other, again, they can't kill each other because, again, they are unstoppable. Freddy versus Jason, I thought was pretty decent and not all that bad. Again, I understand, how mixed this movie is and how, some people feel about it, and, it's probably not the best versus/crossover movie. I understand completely, but again, there are some things that came from this movie that were actually pretty good and decent, because, well, for one thing, a lot of, moments with Freddy and Jason, especially when they were fighting, and all the gruesome kills and murders were pretty good too. And not to mention that there was going to be a sequel at one point, but of course that never happened, and it got turned into a comic book, actually, yeah. But I guess, the ending to the movie, I guess it left off a tease that obviously it was not over, and if these two were going to go at it again, but again, with the sequel not happening, yeah, but hey, at least, for it being turned into a comic book, I guess that still is okay, So yeah, and I'm giving Freddy vs. Jason, and because, how much I thought that this film was not all that bad and so on, I'm giving it 7 out of 10 stars. Yes, 7 out of 10 stars for Freddy vs. Jason. And what about you guys? What did you think of the movie itself? If you thought this was not all that bad, and if you enjoyed the moments with, Freddy and Jason, and besides, it's Freddy and Jason. They never disappoint. And especially Robert Englund, him as Freddy Krueger, he never disappoints when he played Freddy Krueger. Not at all. And what did you think of my review? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. So, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of Freddy vs. Jason. More review videos coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and I'll see you guys in the next video/review. And of course, continuing on reviewing Halloweenish films, the next Halloweenish film I'm going to be reviewing, well, first off, I'm not doing it alone. One of my friends will be joining me reviewing this film that features Nicolas Cage as Dracula. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. Stay tuned for that later this week. And happy anniversary to Freddy versus Jason. Take care and peace out.